This is reminding me of the Thunder Ray video that I made not super long ago. But I started noticing a trend when it comes to Punch Out inspired video games. Okay. So over the years, as you guys know, for at least a year or two, maybe 3 years now, I've been a massive fan of the Punch Out series. Last one officially released back in 2009. I even have a whole video talking about my experience being a Punch Out fan, or my experience, being a Punch Out fan with nothing new officially. I talked about that and whatnot, but I kind of want to talk about a similar topic, but a little bit different, right? And it's not just about Punch Out Wii. It's mainly about all these other games trying to be Punch Out, but they could never live up to that task, or they could never live up to that legacy, no matter how hard those games try. And I started noticing this, when Thunder Ray hit the scene back in 2023. I have a My Experience video on it, and I said, why Thunder Ray would never be like Punch Out, why Thunder Ray could never be Punch Out. I don't know. To me, all these Punch Out inspired video games, to me, are kind of sorry attempts at making a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them feel like sorry attempts in making a perfect Punch Out like video game. And ever since I finished Punch Out for the Nintendo Wii, I've always been I wanted to find like that perfect Punch Out game to scratch this sort of itch. And ever since I beat this game and I played Punch Out for Scratch, I played the ROM hacks, which Fred's Cool Punch Out was pretty cool, but those games, I played Thunder Ray. I haven't played Bad Boy Boxing or Big Boy Boxing. I haven't played that one yet, but I have played Thunder Ray. I have played other Punch Out like games, like the Presidential Elections Punch Out or Presidential Elections Knockout, and other Punch Out like clones. And I'm starting to see that every single time somebody decides to make a Punch Out inspired video game, everyone at first, sees it as, oh my god, someone actually had the nerve or the balls to go out and make a new and improved Punch Out. This is awesome with new mechanics, something, right? Like, this is awesome. And then when you play it, it starts to sink in the more you play, the game that is inspired to be like Punch Out, that this isn't Punch Out, or this isn't what I wanted, exactly. This is something else entirely. Sometimes, you know what I mean? Like, let's take Wade Hickson's Counterpunch. That game had the cartoony aspect of Punch Out. It had the wacky, unpredictable characters just like Punch Out. And it had a pretty nice story. That is like a good example of being a pretty decent, okay Punch Out experience. But I would argue like the characters are nowhere near as memorable, or they weren't in multiple different games like the Punch Out roster, etc., etc. And again, it's like whenever you dive deeper into those games, you start feeling, and this is me too, when I play Thunder Ray is a great example. I'll repeat what I said in that video here a little bit. The more I was playing Thunder Ray, the more I realized they just can't do it like Punch Out did, man. Back in the 90s, back in early 2000s. What made Punch Out Wii so perfect in comparison to all these other games that are inspiring to be the next Punch Out, And to me, it's like the characters, the world, like I noticed some of those Punch Outs, right? Those Punch Out video games, they have like one aspect of Punch Out in there. Like it can be the gameplay, or it's the goofy, wacky characters, or the goofy, nonchalant story to it, but they never master it, or they never quite do it as good as Punch Out for the Wii did. And I know that's a little unfair to talk about a Wii game from 2009 versus Thunder Ray, which is clearly an indie game or whatever, but if you're going to be a Punch Out inspired video game to me, then you need to hit it in all fields. And I feel like maybe Wade Hickson's Counterpunch was like the closest I think we've ever gotten to somewhat of a successor to 2009's Punch Out, in my honest opinion. Out of every Punch Out game I have played, I have seen that was like a fan game or inspired by Punch Out, I feel like none of them hit quite the same mark. And like, I'm going online trying to find these games to play, but none of them seem to reel me in as hard as Punch Out Wii did. If you watched my Punch Out Wii series on YouTube when I was playing the game for the first time, I was hooked. I was reeled in. I wasn't hooked / reeled in for like 5 minutes or only one stream like it was Thunder Ray. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, it's just, it bothers me to my core that something like this happens, and yet it fails so miserably. Not this game, but the fan games that are trying to aspire to be it fail so miserably at what makes Punch Out tick. For example, Thunder Ray. Thunder Ray was trying to be Punch Out, but with opponents that are more serious, way more aggressive, and the dodging mechanics are shitty. That's what Thunder Ray was. That's not Punch Out. Sure, the gameplay may act like it's Punch Out for the NES, but it ain't Punch Out. None of the characters are funny or goofy or really all that entertaining, and probably rememberable compared to Soda Popinski, or not Soda Popinski here, Von Kaiser, I mean, Glass Joe, Disco Kid's probably like the least memorable. Well, Disco Kid's just one of the memorable ones, but you can tell anyone in the Punch Out roster is infinitely more recognizable, okay, than any of those other characters in those Punch Out like clones, okay, or those Punch Out like games, man. And again, it bothers me to my core that there's not a single Punch Out inspired video game that does its own thing that I want to play. I want to play, I want to play something like Punch Out, okay, or exactly like Punch Out. Where is Doc Lewis? Where is Little Mac? That is what I want to play. I don't want to play no fucking, again, Thunder Ray, and don't get me wrong, Wade Hickson's Counterpunch, you were pretty fun, but if you ever made Wade Hickson's Counterpunch 2 Studio, that would be nice. I'd like to see what you would do with Wade Hickson's character after that game. But my point is like, I am tired of seeing all these Punch Out inspired fan games and them not succeeding in how to make a proper Punch Out video game. The proper difficulty, the proper music, the proper atmosphere, the proper everything. And then on the Punch Out fan game perspective, they don't even hit the same level because it's all just Punch Out scratch games, like aka based on the NES one. And don't get me wrong, the NES one is goated. It's great. It's one of the best Punch Out games of all time. But it's like, why only games based on that one? Like, why not get ones that are based off of Super Punch Out? Or, you know what I mean? And I know boxing video games are nowhere near as popular as there once was. Ever since Punch Out kind of fizzled out and Nintendo doesn't really care about this franchise anymore, clearly, because they care about their Zeldas, their Marios, and don't get me wrong, I'm a massive Mario fan, but it's like, every time I think about wanting to play a Punch Out game, I just end up playing Punch Out Wii. over and over and over again in comparison to those other clones. Every single time I think of a Punch-Out like game or a Punch-Out inspired like game, I always beeline it to Punch-Out Wii. Because I already know, once I finish all of those Punch-Out like games, those Punch-Out inspired like crafts, those Punch-Out like masterpieces or whatever, it's over. It's done. I'm not going to remember any of those guys ever again. Never. I'm never going to remember them. And that's fucking upsetting to me. What the fuck? Dude, no. Punch-Out is super unique. Glad to hear your take. Well, I'm glad to, I don't know why my tablet is acting up. But, no, dude. Get out of here. Yeah, no. That's weird, bro. God. But yeah, I wanted to make this video tonight because I was sitting there thinking about, like, Zelda, but then my mind kind of wavered from that and was thinking, Punch-Out. Why can't anyone make, like, the best, like, Punch-Out inspired fan game ever? And sure, like, Punch-Out fan games, maybe, you know, it gets other people on board with those games and then they keep creating sequels of those, but for me, it's infinitely more difficult to get into a Punch-Out like video game and not immediately want to just beeline it back to the original source, to the original, if you will. That's like me wanting to play a game that does things exactly like Mario, but it isn't called Mario. It's called freaking Sario. Which one am I going to play more, Sario or actual Mario? I'm going to pick actual Mario. And I also know the reason why, you know, people create Punch-Out inspired fan games and such, right? The reason why they keep creating these, right, is these games, these types of games, is because Nintendo is doing absolutely nothing with the series. Nintendo decides to, like I said, focus on the Marios, the Zeldas, the Pokemons, the whatever else they got in their Nintendo Switch shelf that they decide to make games about. They don't want to give their niche franchises another chance on their possibly more successful video game console of all time. And that's why fans are doing. That's why Thunder Ray is on the Nintendo Switch. PlayStation even. You can call Thunder Ray PlayStation's version of Punch-Out. Right? You can call it that. Get out of here. Tired of you. But again, it just hurts my feelings. You know, whenever I think about this series, I'm like, why can't any fan-inspired game be just like you? Is it because I need Mac and Doc Lewis for it to be official? Maybe. I mean, I think I even said in my last video that, like, Punch-Out fan games, you know, or fan-inspired games, they can only go for so long, in my opinion. They can only keep the Punch-Out fandom for so long before they think about, maybe I want to give Punch-Out NES another go, or Punch-Out Wii another go. Maybe I should go back. And then once they go back to Punch-Out Wii, they realize this is a lost and forgotten franchise that nobody seems to care about or play anymore. And the only reason people are even touching this one, the Wii one, or Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, is because Mike and Jake Paul had a fight recently. And that's the whole reason why everyone's jumping the bandwagon and saying, yo, this game's the peakest shit of all time. Even though it's like y'all should have been fucking figuring it out and realizing that there's a peak video game that's very unique to its own and kind of held the boxing scene in terms of video games up for a very long time. But I digress. I sit here in kind of somewhat loneliness. I don't know if I'm the only one that feels this way, in terms of Punch-Out fan games that never really hitting the same mark as the original. But Nintendo, I would love if he did something about this. It created a new Punch-Out. And don't get it twisted. All right, to everyone I just mentioned, like the team that did Thunder Ray, the team that did Big Boys Boxing. I'm not saying your game, well, Thunder Ray, your game is trash. I don't like it, but Big Boy Boxing and others, I'm not trying to say your games are bad games to play. I'm just saying y'all, in a way, just can't compete with the original, in my opinion. Y'all aren't bad. It's just that, to me, it has to be the original for me. I want Little Mac and Doc Lewis. Maybe strike a deal with Nintendo and get Little Mac back on the map instead of trying to, and I get it, trying to make your own version of Punch-Out seems infinitely easier than trying to revive a dead-ass IP, a dead IP like Punch-Out, because Punch-Out, let's be honest, is a pretty damn dead IP right now, and trying to get anyone interested is kind of difficult, especially how Nintendo handles things nowadays. But again, I digress. Punch-Out like games. Punch-Out fan-inspired games. I don't know, man. Do better. Maybe ask Nintendo to do something about it. I don't know. Try being more like Anton Blast and Pizza Tower. You know what I'm saying? Where they actually succeed, in their craft. Where they're on Nintendo Switch. They're on official hardware. They're coming to official hardware, Just, I don't know. Or maybe just ask Nintendo to, or maybe try to work with Nintendo, work with them, help Nintendo make new ideas for a new Punch-Out game. Because if you guys know or don't know, Nintendo likes to innovate / not do the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. So I'm just saying, if y'all got a small team together, and Al Borden, welcome J-Bro, welcome to stream. I'm just saying, if y'all got Nintendo in a room, ask some of the higher ups, can we do something with this IP? Or if Nintendo allows you to throw it at them, throw Punch-Out out the window, it's like, fuck. Go ahead, man. Get the go-ahead from Nintendo to make a new Punch-Out game and then make your original ideas. I would love to see Mac have new fighting moves instead of punching just face and punching body. Maybe a kind of like Thunder Ray. Thunder Ray was kind of getting the right idea with the charge punches and stuff, and this is something I also really like about, again, Wade Hickson's counterpunch, where Mac has different super moves he can pull off on the opponents that will either work or not work. I don't know. I feel like if y'all can get Nintendo in a room, I feel like Punch-Out can be revived instead of just making these fan-like games or these fan-inspired games that do things similar to Punch-Out that have the same gameplay as it but have a completely different feeling to it. And also, I feel like those Punch-Out fan-inspired fan games are alienating a lot of folk, because the difficulty ends up being way too hard. Or, especially, I think Big Boy Boxing, I think you'd only take, 2, 3, maybe 4 hits before you're knocked out completely by some of these boxers. And, Thunder Ray, again, depending on the difficulty you put it on, rookie, contender, or beast, you go out in such a small amount of hits. It's not even funny. You know what I mean? And I know Punch-Out did that a little bit too with some of the heavy hitters like Bald Bull, Soda Popinski, and Mr. Sandman, but that's literally only 3 out of the 4 characters in the or 3 to 4 characters in the roster that are able to drop your health like that. Von Kaiser, Disco Kid, Glass Joe, those guys, Piston Honda, those guys don't really drop so much health unless they do a super wind-up attack or whatever the fuck, And I feel like there's so many talented people out there in the world too that can easily make a Punch-Out game on the internet, online. I've seen what all the Punch-Out Scratch people can do. And it's like, I don't know. Do something, add your own elements, but throw Mac and Doc Lewis into a new world, man. I want to see it. I'm tired of kind of waiting around for, like, Nintendo to do it. Go to Nintendo and do it yourselves, man. Fuck. I want to see that. I want to see, like, an older Little Mac. I want to see an old man Doc Lewis saying, "This is our last run, Little Mac." You know, type shit. Not like the Last Stand shit, like Punch-Out we had. But, like, I don't know, new adventures, completely new boxers, completely new personalities. You know, I remember there's a lot of Punch-Out on Reddit forums talking about that. Like, hey, if we make a new Punch-Out game, I want a new characters with interesting personalities. Not personalities that will offend people in nowadays, but personalities that are really good that fit Punch-Out as a series nonetheless. You know, in a good way, not like a racist way like the original Punch-Out did it. But yeah, that's like my experience being a Punch-Out fan, you know, in 2024, or my experience playing Punch-Out-like video games. It's annoying because they all try to be like the main game, but they can never quite hit that mark. It's sad. Really sad. And like I said, some of the games do one or two, maybe three aspects out of what I want to see in a true Punch-Out like video game. And then they just fail or do something so different that it's not even considered Punch-Out anymore. It's like considered a different video game all the fuck together. You know? And that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I'm not expecting anyone to agree with me. I was just really bothered tonight about everything that I said earlier about this entire thing. I'm just bothered by it, you know? Just bothered by it. I just want, you know, Punch-Out to thrive. You know, another series I really like that's kind of dead, but I want it just to thrive, okay? I want Little Mac to go on more adventures like fucking Super Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog or something. You know, or whatever. Go on more boxing journeys. Maybe do the whole Mike Tyson thing. Remember, like, and don't even get me started with Mike Tyson's, Mike Tyson. What was that shitty ass Mike Tyson game that they said that was gonna be Punch-Out's NES sequel, but ended up being bad? It was like that Mike Tyson punching space game, pretty much. I feel like Thunder Ray was a better version of that game. But my point is even that game sucks, and it failed in comparison to trying being like NES Punch-Out. Gameplay wise, story wise, it was boring. But anyways, that's not my point. My point is if you want to make a Punch-Out like game, just make Punch-Out. Just literally go work for Nintendo. Make it happen instead of just creating these fan games and shit that not everybody has access to. You know what I'm saying? I feel like we live in a world where, like, access is so important, right? And it's like, well, what if somebody wants access to a new version of this? Oh, you got to go on Steam to find Big Boy Boxing or Thunder Ray, or have a PlayStation and play Thunder Ray, or like I said, Big Boy Boxing, or Wade Hates His Counterpunch. You got to get a Game Boy Advance out, whip that bitch out and play it, or an emulator, or freaking you name it, man. You got to have all those things just to play a Punch-Out like video game, and that's annoying. Just go to Nintendo and make a new Punch-Out happen. And I know that is way easier saying it than actually getting it done, but it's just facts in my opinion. I feel like we should have gotten a new Punch-Out forever ago, and I hope maybe Switch 2 decides to actually do that. But anyways, I'm freaking done for the night. Later, y'all. I'm done. Sweating my ass off. Goodbye.